Hey folks, I'm glad you're here. If you're new to the channel, my name is Chris, and today we are talking about a weapon light from a company called Trustfire. This is their GM35. Obviously, this is a handgun light, and it's very interesting to me. Trustfire reached out to me a couple weeks ago asking if I would do a review on one of their weapon lights. They let me peruse their website and pick one, and this is the one that piqued my interest the most based on its numbers that we'll get into in a minute. We're going to be pitting this light up against two other reputable companies that are very well known. One is Inforce with their Wild 1, which is my go-to handgun light, and then the infamous Surefire X300. The reason why I'm choosing those two specific lights is because I have them, and because this thing, size-wise, sits between them, nestled very comfortably. But based on its spec sheet and some performance that you'll see out on the range, it is boasting some pretty intense firepower, especially considering at first glance, this company seems to be very much like Olight, almost like a Chinesium, you don't know what you're gonna get quality-wise kind of company, but this thing has me confused with that initial analysis. I wanna give it an honest opportunity to make some waves, and so I'm actually going to try to make this my go-to light for a while here. But let's talk about why I would even consider it for that. Let's start with the spec sheet. Inforce Wild 1 is coming in at 500 lumens. I don't know what the candela is. It's not very much because it's, you know, a compact light for compact guns. The X300, infamously 1000 lumens, 11,300 candela. The Trustfire GM35 is coming in at 1,350 lumens and 9,800 candela. So way ahead on the lumens from the X300, behind on the candela. And the difference shows out on the range. So I'm gonna take you out to the range real quick to a beautiful dark morning before the sun rises and show you the difference between these three lights, how they actually perform out in the wild. We're going to start with our smallest and weakest light, the Inforce Wild 1. This is about 30 yards or so away, this target, which will be dead center in your view. So we'll go a little side to side and see how the Inforce does. Not bad, definitely not bad. Now let's bump things up to the Surefire X300. Definitely a marked difference there. Definitely spilling a lot more. So there's our X300. And here is our Trustfire. Now, in my opinion, not as much spill, but it is really lighting up the target and the area around it. So let's that guy off. Surefire on. Surefire off. Trustfire on. Trustfire off. Surefire on. Surefire off. Trustfire on. So I think that it does a better job lighting up the target. The Surefire does a good job lighting up the target and the space around it, but not as good of a job lighting up the target. I also prefer the wider light of the Trustfire, but that's just personal preference. Now here they are side by side on different parts of the berm. Surefire over to the right, Trustfire over to the left. This makes the difference very obvious. So one thing that I like about this light, that I also like about the Inforce Wild 1, is that the actual light itself is very white light. Streamlight and Surefire's lights, they tend to be a little bit yellow. And personally, I don't love that. That may be a nitpicky thing, but I feel like I see things better in white light than I do in yellow light, and that may just be me. The next thing is, this thing's freaking bright, especially at those, I don't know, I would call them closer-ish distances. This thing really lights up a target, but it's not bad reaching distances at the same time. So the performance seems to be there. Will it hold up over time? We'll find out. I'm going to do another review of this in 4 to 6 months, somewhere in there, after I've had some time to really abuse it and see if it craps out on me. But let's move away from the performance and get into some of the features. Before we get into the features, I want to talk about some affiliates. The first one is my go-to for ear pro, and that is Axel. These are the X-Core earbuds. If you buy them, they're going to replace every listening device that you currently own. I've kind of, in the past, compartmentalized my listening devices: range ears, work ears, exercise ears, running ears, because all of those demand different things, different fits, different sizes, and all that stuff, all those accommodations. This fills all those roles for me and comes in this really nice charging case. If you're interested in checking out the Axel X-Core, head down to the link in the description. They're almost always doing a deal. Recently, they've been knocking 120 bucks off these guys. If they are not currently doing that, you can use Sever Shoots at checkout to save yourself 15%. Last thing, there's going to be a card up here for you to go and click on, and that will take you over to my review, so you can get a little bit more in-depth information on the Axel X-Core. The next company I want to talk about is a shoe company, and that is Splay Shoes. I think that footwear is extremely important, and I have another channel with my brother where we talk extensively about footwear. It is called Sons of Sever, and Splay is one of the affiliates for both channels. The thing I love about Splay is they are very flat. They're a fantastic lifting shoe. They have a wide toe box so they don't squeeze your toes together, which will give you bunions and other kinds of deformities like hammer toe. That'll hinder your performance out on the range. They're extremely light, flexible, and in my opinion, they look really good. If you're interested in checking out Splay Shoes, head down to the link in the description. And if you want to save some money when you purchase a pair, then use Sons of Sever at checkout, and that'll save you 10%. Now let's get into some of the more technical features of the Trustfire GM35. One I want to mention is that it is quick attach and quick detach. It's got one of our little tightening levers here. It comes with a set of interchangeable locking bars depending on the rail setup that you are using. We have paddles as our activation. One press will give you constant, and then a long press will give you momentary. I'm a big fan of paddles personally. That is why I love the Inforce Wild 1, and before it's the Inforce APLC. We have a battery indicator here at the back that shows green if it is charged up plenty, and then it goes through a progression. As it goes down, it'll go yellow, orange, and then eventually red when it needs to be charged. And at that time, when you activate it, it will blink twice and then turn off. It is rechargeable, which I think every lighting company needs to move towards. I do not understand why, with today's battery technology, we are still dealing with having to switch dead batteries in and out. Doesn't make sense to me. Those are the more technical specs. Now I actually want to throw it on my carry gun of choice, which is currently the P365X Macro, the TAC Ops version with the magwell, no porting along the top, but real simple. Line it up with our rail and snap it on there. We don't have any excess shaking, and through 300 rounds, this thing has managed not to go flying off my gun. So I think that the attachment system is fine. Personally, I really like this form factor. It's kind of reminiscent of having like your typical mid-size gun, like a P320 compact or X carry model, or your mid-sized M&P with an X300 on it with the little nose sticking out. But this is still going to be smaller and more comfortable for you to carry if you can find a holster for it. That is going to be one of my only gripes that I mention at this juncture with the light, is that literally no companies make holsters for this light. That's going to be a huge hindrance to their sales, and I tried to convince them to send one of their lights off to my holster guy, I may end up buying one of their lights and sending it to him so that I can have a holster to actually actively carry this thing in, but yeah, that's gonna be an issue for now. Keep an eye out. If I end up liking this thing, then McKinney Holsters is probably going to be making holsters for this specific light, even if it's just for me. But like I said, just to finish off, I actually really like this form factor. I think it looks good out on the range. It performed well. Just to let you know, I was running this setup right here out of a P320 holster for an X300. It does fit. It's a little loose. It covers the trigger guard. It was in no way unsafe. I wouldn't carry like that on the daily, but for range practice and video purposes, it worked out just fine. I'd love to hear your opinions of this light. Is it another cheap Chinesium Olight situation? Is this thing going to explode and become a flashbang grenade? Coming in at, currently on sale, 80 bucks compared to Surefire's over $300 for the X300, and the Inforce Wild ones, you can find it for $120 to $150, anywhere in there. The price raises a red flag in and of itself, so I'm interested to see if it holds up. If you're interested to see how it holds up over time, make sure to like and subscribe. Also, consider heading over to my Instagram page where I post almost daily. I appreciate your view. I'm glad you're here. And as always, I will catch you later.